Okay, welcome to the back of the ute. This isn't my ute, but any ute will do for these conversations as long as we're talking regenerative farming. So this is deBurgh, Joyce. He's somebody that I've met on the Enlightened Ag course, and we just want to have a bit of a yarn about the history of his property. It's called South End, and any other bits and pieces that he wants to add into it. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks.
So, what
excited.
I'd like to know is just a bit about the history of this property.
Yeah, well, so that it doesn't come over as I might be a person just into the system. I'm third generation. I've been here permanently since 1973. Owned this property that my father handed on since 1977, and half of this property was bought by my grandfather in 1914, and the other half was bought in 1956 when a big lease that my grandfather had of sort of over 100,000 acres had run out and put into soldier settlement. So I'm fairly indigenous with what I'm doing on this property. I know most of my rocks and trees, and I'm interested in what I'm doing. So if there's a unusual tree or an unusual plant, I want it identified, and even if I don't remember the name, I can refer back to it. And I think it's important that we know what we've got on our properties. And as far as what we're doing here, one of the interesting things we've started doing, other than just having a monoculture of cattle on the property, we're now co-grazing with camels. That we started doing that in 2002, and we've been at it for a while. We've found that by co-grazing with camels, or the reason we started co-grazing with camels was we were looking for something other than chemicals to control timber with, and we've found that the camels have come in and done that successfully, and also done a lot of weed control for us. And so that's interesting. We're breeding camels as well, and I think the biggest number we got up to was 450 on the 9,300 acres we've got here, which was overstocked with camels when we were trying to still run cattle on it. We've downsized a bit, selling camels to meat works. We're selling them to dairy or camel dairy farms, and we're selling them to other people that want to do the same thing as we are, plus into the camel sort of tourist industry that are riding. We've got 3 camels in Australia Zoo. We've got 3 down in Tasmania in a zoo, and then we predominantly supply the only organic camel dairy in the world down at Glasshouse Mountains. So that's interesting to be involved with that person. Other things we're doing on this property, as I said, we like to know all our plants. We have come to hate chemicals because of the damage they're doing. We stopped farming because we didn't know how to do it properly, and we did a lot of damage to our country by farming the wrong way. So now we've gone a step further, and we've kicked predominantly most of the chemicals out of our system. We're not organic yet, but we dodge chemicals as much as possible, to the extent that now we're controlling any weed that we shouldn't be, or consider shouldn't be in the system, like galvanised burr and mother of million. We're controlling them with flamethrowers. It's a lot of work. It keeps you healthy doing it, and it's effective, and you're not buggering up the soil. And if you're going to be using chemicals, you're just creating a weed bed for more weeds. So if you want to go the chemical way, it'll bugger you in the end. Nature will kick back and put you out of the system, or make you go where all these other enlightened agricultural people are going to, and the holistic management people, where the system that we're under is wrong, or we're brought up to. And I think that we need to start thinking about holding governments and chemical companies and the medical world to account for the bad things they're doing in the world.
So just going back to the more of the systems approach and the holistic side of things, what else have you been doing on the property to make it more productive?
Well, we were following Peter Andrews fairly closely, doing a lot of, trying to do leaky weir stuff, and then a lot of contouring. And we were doing a lot of contouring. The original drains are grassed up pretty well, and they've made their own natural blocks. So I have got a bit of a chain of water holes. But I haven't gone to what Peter Andrews says about actually mechanically making those drains into a chain of ponds, because I think that they're still working pretty well, and they're helping us with our country.
Okay, so let's then talk about your cattle, because you're quite a special farm, I believe, because you've got breeder cattle.
Yeah.
So there's a difference between breeding and trading, isn't there?
Yeah, a lot of difference between breeding and trading. Trading, you get the benefit of the profits, and it's maybe a little bit more intense. Breeding, you get the satisfaction of seeing a new calf come along and having an animal through its life, and seeing what they're doing for you, and following, how they're helping us. And I think that, we're finding that breeding's good. Our country's predominantly forest country, so it's more aligned to breeding. Some people have got too rich a country, and they're better off backgrounding and fattening cattle, because if they put breeders in, the breeders get too fat and they get infertile. So we're better off in our country doing using the breeding system, and that's where we find the profit is. And the other thing is with our breeders, I was brought up in a regime of not pushing our country hard, keeping your haystack in your paddock. And my father always said, a beast to 10 acres, and we're still, even though we've done a lot of development, we're still pretty predominantly a beast to 10 acres. The departments will tell us this country's good for a beast to 5 acres, but the people that are following that aren't all that successful. Whereas we mightn't be rich, but we're successful, and we're not about to be moved on.
And you happy with where you are now?
Yeah, pretty happy with the way we are now, mainly with the way the cattle prices are. They're fantastic at the moment. I'm debt-free for the second time in my life, except when I was a kid and didn't have any worries or any debts. My father and mother had all those things, and I just helped them spend their inheritance. But now, with the cattle price the way they are, it's pretty exciting, and we can do a lot more things now. We upgrade our machinery to where we've got new stuff, and I do all my own maintenance, so I spend a lot of time in sheds maintaining old stuff. Now I've got to get in some old stuff, so I've got a bit of mechanical work to do, because the new stuff that I've got doesn't need maintaining. And I'm in the process of rebuilding a 1957 Toyota truck that's interesting, and it's got 3 axles and it's got 3 drive shafts, so that's a bit unusual. Most trucks, if they're 6-wheel drive, they've only got 2 drive shafts, whereas this one's got 3.
So you found some extra time then away from your grazing to actually do things that you enjoy.
Yeah, and I'm trying to convince Marjorie about leasing the place out and getting on the road. Keep this as a base, keep on coming back and checking on what the people that are leasing it are doing. Still keep the home, don't let someone else move in and mess it up for us. But get on the road and do a whole lot of different things we haven't done, do a lot more travelling. One of the things I'd like to do is get out and help other people on their properties just for a month or 2 every now and again. I did that after the big floods up in Julia Creek, and that was interesting to get to know other families that had been under pretty severe conditions, and it was pretty rewarding for me to take people up there with me. One friend was suffering depression, and he says it's one of the best weeks of his life, and he got himself out of depression, so that was bloody good. And I think that was getting back to holding the medical world and the governments to account. A lot of the depression is caused by our diet, but a lot of the depression is caused by bad governments pushing us or allowing the manufacturers to give us this diet. We've got to get away from that, get organic, grow your own food, and we still milk our own cow, we still kill our own chooks, we still have our own eggs. We still slaughter our own animals for beef, and that's important. And the way the world's gone, we can do all those things and be reasonably healthy, but if you don't supplement with good quality supplements, you won't survive. There's no way in the world we can get health out of our food. Our food's buggered and been modified so much, and our soil's been modified so much. You can do what you like, but I've been taught that you won't get it that way. You've got to do other things to help you along. And if you want to be healthy, stay away from doctors. If you want to be healthy, go and see a naturopath or a dietitian. They'll help you. Doctors won't. Doctors are professionals at keeping you sick and bleeding your bloody wallet until they kill you in the end.
One of the reasons we're having this chat in the back of the ute, or this series of conversations, is about making people aware of regenerative farming.
Yeah.
Because that's the only thing that we're left to do, really, isn't there?
Yeah, exactly. And that'll go a long way. And it's not. And I'm learning now that we're not getting our disease out of contact with people. We're getting our disease through mental stuff that's coming to us through mental stuff and influence. So if the soil's sick, the people are sick. If your diet's sick, you're sick. If you're dealing with sick people, you're sick. So you've got to get out of that regime. Be positive, be active, keep fit, and look at where you get your advice from. And it's interesting, it's the first time I've been to a regenerative agricultural conference, and there's some pretty out there thinkers in amongst them. Some of them I had trouble, I'm still having trouble getting my head around, but we'll go and visit them. And the other thing that I like is most of those people are giving their information out cheaply and reasonably free of cost. I give a lot of my information away, and it's good for me because it gives me a good feeling, and that's part of being healthy, is having a good feeling.
And that's the connection with combining the regenerative farming side of things with the community, with your health, with time to do what you want to do and be happy and just live a good life without that pressure of money and greed. Yep. At the same time, you have to make a profit, because that's why you're here as a farmer or a grazier.
Yeah.
And so, just speak a bit about that productivity with your breeding cattle.
As I said, we're not organic. I'd love to go organic. But as someone told me when I asked him about how I control ticks and buffalo fly, he said, in your intention, and my intention I'm afraid it hasn't got strong enough yet, but I'm working on it.
And that's the link with the Enlightened Ag course that we've just been on for a week. It's a lot to do with intention and energy and crystals and healing that way, which all sounds a bit airy-fairy for a regenerative farmer to go on board, but it's the whole system we're always talking or always going back to, this holistic approach. So what did you find that sort of blew your mind the most about the course?
Yeah, just more the people and the energy of those people, and one person in particular, Heinz Grugger, he didn't speak, but I'd associated with him recently at a dowsing school, and if you don't know what dowsing is, it's similar to the water divining, and he was up here helping me with other stuff prior to that, and I got him back, and he actually went and dowsed one of my bores and told me what was in it, and I hadn't equipped it, but I was just starting to think of equipping it, and so the spirit sent him to me, and he said that there was a good stream about 10 yards away from the existing bore, and he came back after I had to think about it. I got him back later, and he actually mentally or mine goes, pull that stream into my existing bore and got me better quality water and more than double the capacity of that bore. And that sort of stuff is really out there.
And if somebody had just told you that, would you have believed them?
No, he's screwy.
So what made you actually sit up and go, wow, this has actually happened?
Well, I'd tested the bore before he did it, and I'd heard about a friend that he'd done the same thing with, and then as soon as he did it, I retested the bore, and I'd more than doubled the capacity. And then he said, it's only 45% effective. Give it another 30 days, and it'll be 100% effective. And I haven't got back there yet to re-pump it to see whether it's increased it even more than that. And interesting, that bore has done some other stuff with us, and I hadn't sort of thought about it. And I put the bore in and started putting tanks in. We put the tank up a hill about 400 metres away, not a lot of rise, but a bit more rise. But halfway up to that tank was a Peter Andrews level contour bank. So I designed a thing where the overflow of that tank went into this contour bank, and I'm now, the excess water that comes out of that bore, it's going into this contour bank, and I'm running water right down the contour bank 24/7, which is an interesting system. And I've just had a clue the other day. One of my nieces has got a whole lot of soaker hose stuff or trickle hose stuff that she's got sitting in the shed and not going to use. I'm going to try to get some of it and see if I can, instead of pooling that water, see if I can spread it right along this contour bank.
Yeah.
And that'll be interesting to see, and that'll really be something that'll blow my mind a bit if I get that to work effectively.
Yeah, I'd love to see that. That'd be great.
So.
Have you got anything else to say?
No, I think that's about all. I've touched on a few things, and I don't want to clutter your movie up with too much stuff.
Well, thank you so much for allowing me to sit in the back of your ute.
And the interesting thing, you go to this Enlightened Agriculture thing, and you get a chance to play on the internet and the airwaves with a bit of information that's just sitting in my head and not getting out there where it can help other people. And so I hope that someone can take something from this interview and use it to their advantage, and they might even come to me and say, oh, you better become a consultant, and then I can charge them for my information, which I give away cheaply anyway.
Well, there you go, there's one option.
Yeah, and that'll give me a buzz if I can help people and not to have to bloody make a fortune out of the information I give them.
Yeah.
Because I make my money out of cattle, I don't have to make my money out of other stuff.
Yeah.
I can give it away and donate a bit of my learning back to the world and hope I can help the world with a few good ideas instead of these whoopee bloody ideas of ploughing up country and poisoning it and then going to the doctor and seeing how sick he can make you. I've got to take him on about something because he diagnosed me with bowel cancer a while ago because my iron levels were low. And because I'm into natural health, I just looked at him. He said, you got a 50% chance of having bowel cancer. And I just looked at him. I said, Jesus, that's good, Bruce. I've got a 50% chance of not having it. And I went and had a $4,000 worth of tests, and I proved him completely bloody wrong. So that's what head stuff can do for you if you're prepared to be. When people give you the negative, think of the positive and see if you can beat them at their game and use your brain power, which is all powerful, to stop disease and stop bloody the wrong things happening in the world.
Yep, definitely, and that's what regeneration is all about.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and make this world a better place instead of making it a place where you're going to screw what profit out of you can and then die after you've buggered it all up.
Well, thank you. Pleasure. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure talking to you, deBurgh. And that's what